It's a real pleasure to be with all of you virtually this afternoon. And I have to say, as I was walking over and reflecting on this new faculty orientation, this is always a very eventful time for us, and certainly the first year at a new institution is filled with opportunities and challenges, and this will be a year like none other for sure. So one that you will certainly remember deeply. And I do want to emphasize at the beginning, particularly as all of our faculty may be working through establishing their research spaces and laboratories, just know that we're here to support you during this difficult time. There have been many changes in policies and procedures that we've been working through, and I think it's just to kick it all off before kind of diving into the enterprise. I just want to let everyone know that if you are experiencing challenges, it's just important to reach out, and we are always here to answer questions. So don't, feel free to send me an email directly or others in our office, and as we'll point out, the leadership within your college, because we want to make sure that even during this difficult time, that your transition is as smooth as possible. So I am just going to step through some major components of our enterprise and the different functional groups within the office, and the connectivity to other key parts of campus. As we step through the presentation, again, I'm sure you are just getting bombarded with information, and generally it will take some time, as Peter said, to digest all of this information and understand where you may need to go for different things. So I'll keep it at a high level, and then we'll have Sally Bond join us next to go through a little bit more of our research development program, which I think is one of the strongest in the country. So we're in really, you'll be in very good hands there. You've been bombarded with facts, and I, just like to highlight that from the perspective of our research enterprise, and research and scholarship, we are building on such a strong base. We have a very large and robust graduate program with over 10,000 graduate students. And we are reaching out to more partners than ever, and we'll highlight some of those throughout the rest of the presentation. You may have heard about our strategic plan, Purdue Moves. And I think importantly, I'm relatively new back to Purdue. I did my graduate work here quite some time ago, and I came back to Purdue in this role last August. So I was in your seat just a year ago. And it's been really exciting to come back to Purdue and really do a deep dive into our overall enterprise and understand that the investments, the strategic investments that have been made through Purdue Moves really have, I think, led to some transformative advancements. And so you can see here that there are a number of different areas you've been hearing about many of them, but there's a real commitment to advancing world-leading research, and I will again emphasize the partnerships, because as we think about higher education in the 21st century, I think increasingly everybody realizes that no one institution can really drive impact the way that we can if we look at where our core areas are, what we do, and how we reach out to partners across the nation and across the world to work hand in hand together to drive to impact, so to speak. So let me just highlight some of the main components of our research and partnership enterprise. These fall within the Office of the Executive Vice President for Research. And again, we work hand in hand with all of our colleges and largely through our associate deans for research. So I'll touch on that at the very end. But just to go through the major functions within our office, we first highlight our Discovery Park. And if you have not engaged or heard of Discovery Park, it's a unique part of campus where we have a number of our university level centers and institutes, as well as a growing base of shared user and core facilities that are really here to support faculty. By cross-cutting and university-wide, we truly mean university-wide. The majority of our centers have participation from 4 or more colleges. Some have participation from all colleges. So that is an area where I would definitely encourage you to do a deeper dive to look at the different centers and institutes that provide support. You'll hear from Sally Bond. She is involved in part of our research development team, but I'm also including a call out to our federal and state engagement as we think about really how we engage with our external community and bring opportunities back to the university. We've just stood up together with the University Development Office an integrated portal for industry engagement called the Office of Industry Partnerships. And that office is here to make connections from a holistic perspective, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. We have our Office of Global Programs that includes international students and scholar services. So some of you may have already engaged with this group as you were working through the onboarding process. Our research enterprise, of course, really needs to not only provide services, but ensure that we're meeting all of our state and federal regulations. And we have a strong team that is supporting our research regulatory affairs. This team also, although it's called Research Regulatory Affairs, they do a lot of work in supporting regulatory affairs for instruction and community engagement as well. We oversee our university veterinarian and our laboratory animal program. So for those of you who do animal research, there is a very significant support at the university level to support our one of the most diverse and complex animal care programs in the country as a land-grant institution with both biomedical applications, basic science, all the way to agriculture and large animals. And then finally, I do want to highlight that although they don't fall within the office itself, you can see our office, as a key liaison to a very critical part of our research enterprise, which is our sponsored program services office, as well as the Office of Technology Commercialization and the Foundry. OTC is really oversees our tech transfer operation, and the Foundry is responsible for really trying to provide services for our students and faculty who are trying to commercialize through startup formation the output of our research enterprise. There are other centers and institutes that are within Discovery Park and throughout the university that are focusing on other aspects of our entrepreneurial ecosystem. So together, they form a very robust network of different groups that are here to support what I would call discovery all the way through market or commercialization. I just want to step through a couple of the different functional units, again, just to introduce you to where you might find them on campus and what you can expect to find in those different units. This slide just shows a thumbnail sketch of Discovery Park. If you've driven down State Street, there is a very dramatic growth in the Discovery Park district. And so this is really the Discovery Park areas where we have our university level centers and institutes, many of them. And the buildings that you see are the Burton Morgan Center for Entrepreneurship at the lower left, the Bentley Biosciences Lab at the upper right, and Mann Hall that houses our sustainability efforts as well as some of our defense and national security efforts. Those are only a few. There are many more buildings in this region that support our cross-cutting interdisciplinary activities. So I do encourage you to take a look at the website. We have 15 university-level centers and institutes that span our core thematic areas and cut across those core thematic areas. They do, again, house many of our core and shared facilities that are available to you and your graduate students and other researchers within your groups. And those are operated with professional staff who can provide training. And then there are mechanisms for our faculty to provide input on key needs that they may have as we are continuing to build out our research enterprise from a capital equipment acquisition perspective. So there's a lot of activity, and I hope that if your particular research area aligns, that you will make a very, very good use, because these are open and support all faculty on campus. I highlighted briefly the Office of Industry Partnerships. Again, this is a new venture where we brought together our philanthropic arm and our research arm into a fully integrated team. We have about 10 team members now that are supporting a holistic industry engagement. That means that we have a portfolio of companies. You see a number of our what we would consider to be Tier 1 partners that we have strategic alliance agreements with. But we work with well over 350 companies on a very regular basis. And those companies really span the gamut from working with us, of course, for talent development, recruitment. Many of them are sponsoring considerable research on campus. And then, of course, they're engaged in providing resources through direct gifts for scholarships, for student activities, as well as through in-kind contributions. We're getting ready to make an announcement of a hypersonics wind tunnel that was just donated from Northrop Grumman at a value of about $15 million. And so those are the types of engagements that we have with the companies. This team, if you have not worked with industry in the past, but you have interest in working with industry, the team is here to help you navigate the differences between working with an industrial sponsor and working with many of our federal agencies. And so I do encourage you to connect with the interim leader, Dave McInnes, and the rest of the team to become more familiar with the work that they do and how you can take advantage of the services that they provide. I wanted to just highlight again, as I came in, I was just doing a survey scan as I came back to Purdue. And as a land-grant institution, this is a plot of Purdue scholarly publications by topic, and this was created through one of our analytic tools. And what this shows, if you look at the different colors and the size of the different dots, it highlights the level of activity that is nationally and internationally leading in the top above 10% in terms of the field at large. And as a land-grant institution, I think, again, one of the most exciting things is that we really cover the whole range of different fields and topics. And what you can see here is that we have extremely high levels of coverage across those different areas. So as a R1 research-intensive university, a member of the AAU, and just looking at the level of scholarly output, I can say I think you've made a great choice in joining us here at Purdue, and we look forward to your contributions to continuing to advance our research enterprise. I also want to give you another snapshot, and that's looking at the externally funded programs. This total research expenditures for FY19 does include both our external as well as our institutional support. And this ranks in the top 40 nationally And that's relevant because, as you know, Purdue does not have a medical school. So many of the universities above us have a medical school. If you just look at the non-medical expenditures, we jump up into the top 25 in terms of extramural support for our research. If you look at just the external component, we are divided roughly 55% federal, 10% state and foreign, and 35% industry, as well as corporate and non-corporate foundation support. And so it's a very balanced portfolio. If I drill down a little bit further and then ask, if you just look at the federal component of our expenditure base, unlike many of our peers that might be 50+% from the NIH, because the medical school would tend to dominate the portfolio, you can see here that we are also equally well balanced at the federal level, with our largest sponsor being NSF. NIH has grown dramatically over the last 5 years, and we're seeing robust growth within the Department of Defense and the Department of Energy, as well as USDA and other support. So we are just seeing a continued, again, diversification of our portfolio. And through the Purdue Move strategic initiatives, we've made targeted efforts at continuing to advance the growth of our funding in a number of these areas. The right-hand part of the chart just breaks out the defense-related agencies. And as, once again, you can see, we have a very balanced portfolio across all of the services. And I do want to highlight that even the defense-related services and agencies fund research across the entire campus. So it's not really isolated in any one particular part of campus. And that's only growing in significance as we think about the needs of the nation in the area of national security. 5 years ago, in 2016, Purdue made almost 5 years ago, made a very significant investment to enhance our focus in life sciences. And if you sum total all of the investments, both in terms of new faculty hires, startups, infrastructure investments, both in space as well as capital support, we have, again, made over a $260 million investment. And that has led to more than a doubling in the growth of our NIH funding. So it has had a very substantial impact. And we are seeing a growth in the number of R01s, all the way to the growth in the number of NIH-related centers on campus. Many in collaboration with medical schools, with our closest partner being IU Health. One of our more recent initiatives that is being launched is a more strategic investment in our national security and defense portfolio. And we have a goal, as we did with NIH, of doubling of our expenditures to be within the top tier of institutions. And given the strong base of engineering, science, all the way to health sciences and beyond, this is an achievable goal, and we're actually very much on target through many of the strategic investments that we're making in this area. So I'm just going to briefly now transition back to our functional units and just kind of drill down and at least highlight the different functions within them. So in our research regulatory affairs, and you'll know if these are important to you, it oversees our human subjects research and instruction, and oversees our institutional review board. For animal care and use, we oversee the IACUC. We support the biosafety and other bioagent research group. Our research information assurance is for cybersecurity as well as export control, ITAR, and other restricted research. This, again, is not limited to research. There are many other parts of the campus that this touches. And then finally, and of increasing importance, as you begin to work on some of your perhaps initial proposals to NSF, NIH, and others, are conflicts of interest. So all of these groups are supported under Chris Agnew, who oversees our regulatory affairs team. I just want to highlight a couple of other, I mentioned that we are a key liaison to other groups. The two that I highlight here are physically housed in our Purdue Research Foundation, and this includes our Office of Technology Commercialization. And you can see here in 2018, actually the 2019 numbers are out, Purdue consistently ranks in the top 15 worldwide for the number of U.S. utility patents. And this is a very high priority as we think about driving research, not simply to scholarly publications, but to think about the societal impact through downstream commercialization. To that end, we are also really have skyrocketed in the number of startups. We rank number 3 nationally and number 6 globally in terms of startup creation from university technologies. So this is a very exciting area. And I'd like to conclude, again, by just highlighting a very, very important fact that your Associate Dean for Research in your college is a very key liaison to our office. And so they will be a key source of information on funding opportunities, resources, and other connections. They are also very actively engaged in working directly with us at the university level on everything from limited submission programs to internal grant programs and other external funding opportunities. So I definitely encourage for you to get to know your Associate Dean for Research. And with that, I will conclude and take any questions that you might have.
Thanks, Theresa. One question that's come in from the new faculty point of view, if they're getting a research program started and they're sort of looking for both kind of small scale and large scale advice, who are the people they need to talk to? Is it senior mentors in their department? Is it their college? Is it you folks? If you were a new faculty member looking to get some new things started, where would you go and who would you talk to?
Yeah, great question. I would often encourage faculty to really get to know senior colleagues not only in their department, but as you look at the particular area you might focus on, try to reach outside of your department. You may work with your Associate Dean for Research, or another really great resource is connecting into some of our university level centers and institutes, and the directors as well as other faculty who participate in those institutes. So I definitely encourage you to certainly understand and engage with faculty within your own department. It's very important to understand the resources and the culture of your department, but at the same time, don't place boundaries around your department, and definitely engage beyond the department. Our program development team is another really great resource for understanding the opportunities that might be available to you. I failed to mention that we also have a foundation relations team. If you're thinking very broadly, sometimes it's very difficult to know, again, how to get started in terms of the wide range of different agencies and opportunities. Oftentimes there's a tendency to focus on one agency, but if your work, if your work is applicable, there are many great opportunities with foundations and, not just the federal agencies. So I hope I've given you a couple of places to get started, but I think that will be a good starting point, and then you can ask the same question and try to continue to build that network.
Okay, another question. What are the areas and fields of research where you would anticipate new or augmented development in Discovery Park sort of near term? What do you see happening anew there?
New areas within Discovery Park. Well, again, we have made major investments in the life sciences area broadly. We're continuing to invest and grow those areas. It's very important that as we think about new areas and new opportunities, that we continue to make very substantial and strong investments in our current centers and institutes. I highlighted several. I didn't highlight some that weren't on the picture. Our Burke Nanotechnology, which is providing significant support not only for fabrication, but we have very extensive characterization and analytical instruments. We are continuing to work with the colleges to look at the ongoing investments that are needed to support those areas. I also failed to highlight that our computational resources really are at the very, very top end of university investment. We just did benchmarking. It's actually run out of ITAP. And they're very, very substantial investments for the support of our research computing, high-performance computing. We are doing a deeper dive in data, not only from the computational supporting infrastructure perspective, but we have a new data science initiative. We're continuing to refine and understand how to support this cross-cutting initiative. And the computational and data resources are of critical importance for that. I did highlight the major investment in national security and defense. That is actually a very broad area in itself. And if you have particular interests in there, I would definitely encourage you to talk to some of the directors. So there's a lot of activity. I didn't highlight all of them, but hopefully I touched on a few.
Thanks very much. Here's a question that as a life scientist myself I know is unanswerable, but I'm asking you anyway. The question is, why isn't there a medical school at Purdue, and is there a plan to have one in the future?
Well, that was the first question that I think I got when I was onboarding, and the question went further to say, is that an advantage or a disadvantage? And you know, there are lots of pros and cons having come from institutions with a more established medical school and an institution that was launching a medical school. One thing I will say is that we have a great relationship with the IU School of Medicine. We have two major programs. One that was just launched this year is a U54 on Alzheimer's research that is a major center-level activity. We also have a joint CTSI, that's the Clinical Science Translation Research Institute. And I think it's fair to say that by bringing the strengths of Purdue together with the strengths of the medical school, it has been consistently rated as, if not the highest, one of the highest ranking CTSIs in the country. So I would say that one of the challenges that we're working on that I have heard, and getting back to Discovery Park and the role of university level centers and institutes, is trying to lower the barriers for access to clinical samples. And that's an area that we're very proactively working on that I think it does present a bit of a challenge, but not an insurmountable challenge. We're developing stronger relationships with Arnett that's within, it's local. So for those of you who really do need access to clinical, you need more of the clinical access. We are just continuing to build out our relationships with established, not only medical schools, we're also working on several other partnerships that I think are relevant. We don't see a medical school, at least in the probably the next 3 to 5 years. But again, I'm not sure that as we continue to look at our investments, and if we invest wisely, and I think it's also important, this is something that I'd really like to emphasize, you know, it's junior faculty coming in from leading institutions across the country. I've found that some of the most insightful feedback on where we need to focus our investments is coming from our junior faculty who are bringing knowledge and expertise from other institutions. And you're really kind of asking us to think about the structures that we're providing and how you can provide greater support. So I do encourage you, as you get to know the system, if you see gaps, if you see barriers and challenges, that you should feel comfortable elevating those. And I think we will all benefit from you doing that. And particularly as we think about how we enhance our life sciences, particularly in the biomedical space, I think that's a real area where we will be relying on you and our other new hires in order to help us think creatively and think about how actually the future of medicine is changing, the integration of data, the integration of computational sciences, I believe is going to change the face of clinical research going forward. And that's where, we could make a tremendous impact.
We have time for one final quick question. This is a crystal ball question. How do you anticipate the pandemic will affect research funding through federal agencies?
Well, it's somewhat of a crystal ball, but I think it's becoming a bit clearer. We were very fortunate well, let me start by saying I just did a FY19 snapshot for you. We just closed out our FY20 fiscal year, and our research enterprise is stronger than ever. We did not see a downturn either in our expenditures or our award portfolio. So it's been a very, very robust period of time for us. We were fortunate in that the federal agencies, through the federal government, broadly speaking, did allow us to continue to charge grants and salary to our grants and contracts through the pandemic. We continue to work with the agencies. One thing that's a very active topic of discussion among the AAU, my counterparts with the federal agencies, is how that gets made up, because what it meant is that many projects fell behind schedule. And so there are ongoing discussions about supplementary funding and the potential that if the federal government does not provide overarching federal support, how the agencies themselves might give extensions, might give supplemental funding that may have the potential to lead to slight declines in the new program starts in FY21, but it's still a bit too early to tell. All I can do right now is deliver, I think comforting and positive news that we have not seen a substantial downturn. We're seeing very robust RFPs requesting and BAAs that are requesting new proposals. And we have a great network. Please deploy our network and use our network and, maybe open the aperture a little bit beyond what you've traditionally opened. But I think I'm I'm cautiously optimistic. I will be testifying to the Congressional Subcommittee on this topic here on September 9th. And I think that will be we'll get some very good feedback on kind of the current state of affairs, but we're anxiously awaiting additional news. So great questions.
Thank you very much, Theresa. And it's refreshing to hear from someone who's looking forward to testifying before Congress.
Yeah.
So thanks very much.